there's no surprises there. We've got our
That's
guest
right.
right up front tonight. We normally don't do that. But welcome, gentlemen. We are excited to have you both with us tonight on the Pastors Round Table. It is a Friday night.
Yes.
Our audience is not necessarily quite yet used to seeing us out on a Friday night because we started, Dr. Henry, 3 years ago?
Was it 3 years ago? That's right. At the very beginning, I think, of the pandemic, we were on Sabbath afternoon, of course. During that time, a lot of people were on and just, relaxing on Sabbath. In fact, a great deal of the country didn't even have church, for a couple of months. And so we were here and doing the Pastors Roundtable. But then when we got back into the church, Pastor Paul, it kind of got a little difficult to be here on Sabbath afternoon, So that's why we're here on Friday night.
Yes, indeed. We want to say a very warm welcome to Andrew Brown. He is joining us tonight from Berrien Springs, Michigan. And guess who else? Stephanie, guess who else is here?
We know that Pastor Wade's mom is in the house, and she is every week. So we're giving a shout out. I actually had a chance to talk to Pastor Wade this afternoon, and so he's doing good. So.
Where is Pastor Wade right now? Where is he on this globe, Stephanie?
Listen, Stephanie, wait, before you tell us, Stephanie, let Pastor Henry and Stephanie, by the way, I want to shout out Stephanie for joining us tonight. She is already part of the PRT team. She's often in the background. The last 2 weeks, she's kind of stepped up. Last week, she was in for me. This week, she's in for Pastor Wade. But Stephanie and Dion, I remember this past summer. Let me go to the other scene here. I remember this past summer, Dr. Henry was traipsing around Paris and Italy and Greece and all those places, and Pastor Wade was like, oh man, I'm gonna go. And then I had opportunity to go to Korea and to where else did we go? To Guam and to Thailand, and he was sitting there saying, well, I'm just staying at home. Now, Stephanie. Now, where is Pastor Wade?
So I'm going to say where Pastor Wade is, but I'm briefly going to just simply say that I'm clearly in the neighborhood, so I should begin the trip soon. Amen.
Absolutely.
Pastor Wade is in Johannesburg, South Africa, with our administrators with the South Central Conference, providing evangelistic services to the Southern Orange Union, I believe it is. So they're in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Wow. In South Africa.
That's beautiful.
Pastor Oswald, we're going to bring you back on in just a second. Well, let's pull up here as we just get a little couple more things out before we bring our guest back on, and while we wait for Pastor Archbold to get back in place. All right. Well, we are excited that Pastor Wade is traipsing around in the motherland this week, and we want to lift him up, keep him in our prayers. I don't know what time it is over there. He may show up in the chat. Who knows, at some point tonight. Now, we also want to let you know that I am looking on my Facebook pages here, and I don't see the stream anywhere on Facebook. It says that it is going out to Facebook, but only the streams that I see live are on YouTube. So we might miss our Facebook audience tonight, but we just welcome our YouTube audience this evening.
Okay. Well, then that means, guess what? We have a lot of sharing to do then, right?
Mercy. That's right. We got a lot of sharing to do.
Some people are on both platforms, so put it out there to have people click over to YouTube.
Yeah, go ahead and grab that YouTube link. Those of you that are watching on YouTube, grab the YouTube link and throw it on your Facebook page for us. For those who might be able to do that. I don't know if TJ is with us tonight, but TJ, you can grab that YouTube link and put that on our Facebook page this evening as well. Tammy says, wow, happy for Pastor Wade. In the motherland. Good stuff. Right. Rodney Smith is in the house again this evening. Welcome, Rodney. Right. Always a pleasure to have you with us. Hey, and there is somebody watching on Facebook. So that was Tammy. Tammy was joining us from Facebook. So there is a feed somewhere out there on Facebook.
Beautiful, beautiful.
All right, couple things we want to let you guys know before we get too far in and bring in our guests. Number one, we talk about things that are going on all around the world, things that impact the church. Man, did you guys see? It's been it's a huge thing, but it's been kind of low key in the news. Over 11,000 people died in Libya, and over 10,000 were still missing. The last that I read, those floods over there in Libya, and we know that there had to be some believers, some brothers and sisters of that we had over there, and even if they weren't part of our particular faith or anything like that, just a travesty, and we want to keep them lifted up. What I'd like to do is in the show notes today, put any ways that for those that may be impressed to send some aid, send some help, ways that we can do that today. But we certainly want to keep those families and those individuals lifted up. Anything else, guys, going on we want to make our audience aware of?
Yes. You want to do it?
Go ahead.
Pastor Henry?
No, go ahead.
No, you got it. This is you also. So go for it. Go for it.
Okay, well, listen, what I was going to say is, of course, there's devastations happening all over, but the gospel is still going out. And so in our conference, we had a convoy of individuals that went to Jamaica. And so they just left yesterday. In fact, one of the people that's on our team, Dr. John Mills, he is in Jamaica this weekend. Right. And they are doing some significant things over there. So we're praising God for the Florida Conference team in Jamaica.
All right, that's not what she was talking about, but
that's not what I was talking about. But I'm happy because Jamaica and Thailand and Italy and South Africa. Oh, I'm just waiting, Lord.
It's coming, Steph. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
So this is what we want to announce to you all. The Pastors Roundtable usually has the three hosts: Pastor Wade, Dr. Henry, and Pastor Paul. And they usually are the primary with our few guests, but we have an opportunity for you all as viewers to have an opportunity to participate on the Pastors Roundtable. But it'll be a little bit different because the participation that we're asking you to provide and to be a part of has to do with a Pastors Appreciation Month. So October is Pastors Appreciation Month, and we want you as viewers to take some time to think about a pastor that has impacted your life in a positive way. And we want you to send to the Pastors Roundtable, and they'll give you the email address in just a second, a short 30-second video, or you can send a picture, something that highlights a pastor that has been impactful in your life. And if there's somebody who you would like to honor in memoriam, we want you to send that name and something about that pastor too. We're going to have this program the first Friday night of October, and so we ask all of our viewers to tune in. And if anybody wants to say more, I think I got it there.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. We know that there are phenomenal pastors out there who are doing wonderful work. We know a lot of times pastors take a lot of heat and they take a lot of I don't know, back in the way you say curry, from folk with different things. Sometimes it's deserved, but a lot of times your pastors are doing things behind the scenes that sometimes you'll never know about, and they're working and they're praying and they're spending money and doing all kinds of things. And so we want to take this opportunity in the month of October to really think about appreciating our pastors. So thank you so much, Stephanie, for telling us about that. A couple other things. All right, our guest just got back in. We're glad we can start moving in that direction now. But two more things I want to make people aware of. Three more big events that are coming up. We've got in the month of October, we've been talking to you about SAC, the Society of Adventist Communicators. That event is happening in October. In November, we've got EC3. We're on our break. I'm going to talk a little bit more about EC3. And then in December, Dion, what do we have coming up that first weekend in December?
We have Pelt. That's right there in Huntsville, Alabama, on the campus of Oakwood University.
All right, all right. We're going to tell you guys a little bit more about those, but now let's go to our guests. First of all, what's on the table, guys? Tonight it's a very special night. We're in a new
All right.
month.
Well, listen, this month,
Not a
of
new month,
course,
but yeah.
but this month from September the 15th to around October the 15th is Hispanic Heritage Month, right? And
There
so
we go.
this month we want to celebrate Hispanic heritage. And for this show, we are discussing the structures and strategies, challenges, and successes of ministry to Latinos in the Seventh-Day Adventist Church. And so we are just so excited to be able to talk about this awesome subject tonight.
All right, all right, all right. And so, Stephanie, who do we have at the table tonight? That's what's on the table. Who's at the table?
So this evening we have the privilege of having Pastor Evanston Archbold and Pastor Hernandez, who are both members of the Southwest Region Conference. And so I happen to know Pastor Archbold very well. I believe he started his ministry in Lake Region Conference and has worked in some other territories outside of North American Division, but I'll let him toot his own horn. And this is actually my first time meeting Pastor Hernandez, but the brief conversation we've had prior to the show was very pleasant. So I'm sure we're going to get some good information tonight.
All right. Well, let's bring them on tonight, gentlemen. Thank you for being with us here tonight on the Pastors Roundtable, and welcome. If you got in early tonight, you saw these gentlemen at the very start of the show, so this is your second introduction. Pastor Archbold and Pastor Hernandez, welcome. We are grateful and thankful that you came to spend tonight with us here at the Pastors Roundtable as we talk about Heritage Month, Latino Heritage Month, or Hispanic Heritage Month. We're going to ask about those two terms in just a little bit. But let's start with Pastor Archbold and then Pastor Hernandez. Just give us a little shout out about where you are, what you're doing, what's going on in your world tonight. We're going to give you, well, you know you're a preacher, so we're going to give you about 47.8 seconds apiece to just shout out and greet our audience tonight. Let's start with Pastor Archbold.
Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it. And lady, my good friend Steph, and I am honored to be able to be part of this beautiful program. I've listened to you guys before, some other programs, and what a privilege. I am in Burleson, Texas, and I work for the Southwest Region Conference. I'm responsible for all our multicultural ministries that are Spanish, are Haitian, are African, and other ethnicities that we have within our conference. And so that's my responsibility. And I am from the beautiful country of Colombia, South America. Beautiful country of Colombia, South America.
All right.
So that's a little bit about myself right there.
All right, Pastor Hernandez.
Oh, it is wonderful to be here, and thank you for the invitation of being here at Pastors Roundtable. As Pastor Archibald, I am also from this country of Colombia, and especially from one special city, the Shakira town. I don't know if you guys know about it, but it is from that particular, just as a reference of where part of Colombia it is. I am the stewardship director for the Southwest Region Conference and also pastor three of a district here in Texas. I'm a financial and an accountant and a diversity of different things that I do also as a tax specialist. So here I am in this particular event talking about our Latinos in the United States.
All right. Well, we're excited about it. Excited about it. Pastor Henry, we're going to ask if you would just start us off with a word of prayer, and then Sister Scott is going to kick us off with our first question tonight.
That's right. Let's pray. Father, what an awesome time, Lord, when you are pouring your spirit down upon all flesh. And we thank you, God, for this tremendous responsibility. We thank you for our guests that are on tonight, God, as they share with us of the evangelistic efforts and the things that are happening. We ask, God, that people be blessed by this program. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 Amen. All right. Well, since I'm kicking off the show, I think I'll start my first question with will be directed to Pastor Hernandez because in your introduction you said something that was very interesting, and you said you provide a ministry to Latinos. So can you give us a definition, or when you say Latinos, who exactly does that include? Can you give us a little bit more with that?
Well, what the word says is really comes from the Latin language, knowing that most of our Spanish speakers are known as Latinos. I would say the whole continent of South America, Central America, and now in the United States, it's a big gap of Latinos or Spanish speakers in the United States, which I would say it's a very majority of population growing every day in our cities. Latino comes from the word that it's Spanish, Latin word that we all speak that language, Latin. Comes from our Latin ancients, and it is reference to all those who speak Spanish. So really, all those that are born, even though you see that in the South America there is a couple of countries called Guyana, they speak English. Same as in Central America, there's a country called Belize, and also in the beautiful island where Pastor Archibald is from, they also speak English. So it is a mix of different islands and culture all together called Latinos.
Would you add anything different, Pastor Archibald? And the only reason I'm saying that is because in my head I feel like, so can you just give us a real quick definition, or is there a distinction, or is there a political correctness between Latino and Hispanic?
No, no, really, it's the definition. In fact, I believe the U.S. government has defined it as just people who are from Spanish-speaking countries. So when you talk about Latinos, you're talking about people who speak Spanish.
Okay. I'm curious, just as a follow up, we live in an age where there's a lot of kind of activism and activist mindsets in lots of different groups. As I listen to the explanation of Latinos and that it comes from the a European type of a origin, not type of a European origin, do you find among indigenous groups that speak Spanish in North America any resistance to being called Latino, and that it sounds, or that it maybe has some colonization overtures or overtures to colonization and Eurocentrism and things like that? Do you sense that or see that anywhere within the Spanish speaking groups in North America?
And that's a very interesting question, and it has a lot. But I would say this. Maybe for the past, I don't know how many years, there has been and even in South America or Central America, including the U.S., there has been like an awakening, I would say, of understanding our roots, where we really come from. Why do we practice what we practice, or our customs? Is it really native, or is it indoctrinated from the Spaniards, and that European mindset? And so indigenous, like for instance, my country, Colombia, where you have a lot of indigenous, and in fact, well, it's pretty mixed. There is an awakening as to, what, this is our land, this is our original language. Let's preserve this original culture that we have, even though it has been mixed with other cultures. There is still this belief that we need to hold on to some of those things that will remind us of where we come from. So that happens with, in fact, in Colombia, you have, and you see, it's interesting now. The census, for the first time, I believe, this time around, or in 2010, made a distinction between, even within the Latino communities, there's a distinction between race. And so not all Latinos are the same. There is a race situation, there's a distinction between races, even among Latinos. And so the Black Latinos, the indigenous Latinos, even the Caucasian Latinos, each one have, because you have Caucasians who, their family, their ancestors are European, and they have their culture. You have Black Latinos who their ancestry is Africa. You have the indigenous who will keep their, so everyone in the last couple of years is trying to say, hey, you know what, we have something, and we want to be aware of it, and let's take care of it.
Okay. Elder Oswald, do you have anything to add to that?
To add to that, also we can look at our here in the United States, as you can see in Florida, how much of an Indians are in there, or in just same as in Phoenix. And if we go to Central America, between Mexico and part of I would say Costa Rica, many of them continue on having that root very, very strong, where they keep their own language. As a matter of fact, when they come across the borders from Guatemala or from Salvador, I mean, when you try to speak Spanish to them, it's not the same Spanish. They have different other dialects in there that you don't control, but it's trying to continue, like Pastor Archibald says, it's trying to keep that root going and not let it go.
Got it. All right. Well, let's move to this next question here. Let's start with, again, Pastor Archibald. I always want to put an I in there. I want to say Archibald. I'm sure you get that a lot. Archibald. Can you give us just a brief overview of the history and any structure of the SDA churches, the Adventist churches ministry to Latinos in North America? And so things like, when did it start? Where did it start? Were there any names associated with that? And what has been the progress from the beginning up till now? Yeah.
Absolutely, man. So really, I'm just trying to make sure I got the right year, because the Hispanic work, or the Latino work, the Hispanic work, the Spanish work started really in Arizona.
Okay.
That's where it started. And I believe the date right here is 1879. 1879. It started with a young man who had just finished. He had served as in the Civil War in the South, and he was around this area in Texas, but moved to Arizona trying to find better jobs and stuff like that. And he moved with his family, and he was actually a Baptist. But when he moved to Arizona, and this is Sanchez, Arizona, and his last name was Sanchez too, which is pretty interesting. There was no Baptists, there were Methodists. And so he would meet with this Methodist preacher by the name of, escapes right now, but I'll get in a minute. And they start, meeting, and one day his kids, Abel and were studying the Word of God, and they came up to Exodus chapter 20, and they read that, hey, the Sabbath day is the Sabbath, not Sunday. And so they started to kind of question the father, and then kind of question also this pastor, this Methodist pastor that was working with them. Simultaneously in Tucson, Arizona, where this Methodist pastor was from, there were some colporteurs from what we know today as Pacific Union College, coming down. It was not named that way back in the, back in those years, but it was a school of training, and they were selling books, and they were selling Spirit of Prophecy books. And they came up to this pastor, and this pastor said, "Man, I have enough books." And then they thought of another strategy real quick. They said, "Man, why don't you? Okay, don't buy us the books, but teach us some Spanish," because he was bilingual. And so he started to teach them Spanish, and once in a while they would throw in some religion into it until they finally touched the Sabbath. And man, they came to study these things. To make the story short, this pastor ended up accepting the Sabbath, and then coming back from Tucson to Sanchez with this family. He actually said, "You know what? You guys were right. The Sabbath is the Sabbath. It's not Sunday, right?" And so this family, the Sanchez family, along with this Methodist pastor who then converted his church, also most of his church, to Adventism, was the first Seventh-Day Adventist Church in the North American division, called the Sanchez Seventh-Day Adventist Church in Arizona. Then it started in Tucson. It spread it all over Arizona. It went down to Albuquerque. Then it went out to California. And that's how it started to spread within the North American division. It started here in the Wild Wild West.
That's fascinating.
Wow,
That's
what a
fascinating.
story. I love it.
Elder
I love it.
Hernandez, I'm an American history buff, and when Van said that this was in the 1870s, I just Googled right quick. Arizona was not admitted into the Union as a state until 1912.
That's correct.
And the Louisiana Purchase that purchased this huge section of the mid America, that from Louisiana all the way up. It did not or it included only a piece of Arizona, I think, so that correct. Arizona at that point was still frontier. Arizona was really not just frontier; it was Mexico.
It was Mexico.
It was Mexico. Part of Mexico.
It was Mexico. That's correct.
That's fascinating. So,
and let me say this real quick. I mean, time, but this is a rich history into this. And by the way, there's a book. There is a book called. It celebrates the 100 years. It was 10 years ago that it was written. But I want to mention it real quick. The Untold Story of the Hispanic Adventists, of the Hispanic Adventism in North America. That's the name of the book. The Untold Story of the Hispanic Adventism. And I put it out there so people can, are interested in knowing, because there's a lot of history. Let me tell you, the son of this man, Abel, later on met with Sister White. And in a visit with Sister White, we find actually the only time where Sister White spoke some inspirational words in regards to the Hispanic work. She said that the Hispanic work, she saw that the Hispanic work was going to be the one leading the work in the future to come. And
wow,
that is the only quote that we find that Sister White talked about the Hispanic work. And as you get the other question, I'll get the quote real quick just to share, so you can know where it is.
Elder Hernandez, just one follow up with that question.
Well, I want to add to that that's how part of our Hispanic or Spanish churches are inside the North American division, and has grown so great. As a matter of fact, there was never in our region conferences, there was never Spanish in there until 2000, until 19, when the Mariel came in from Cuba, and all those Cubans immigrated into Miami. So that's another part of the history. I don't know if we have some time that I can count on that, but I can let you. That's part of our history of the Hispanics inside our region conferences, not only in the other conferences.
Wow, that's fascinating because it's interesting. When I was growing up as a kid, we always looked at the demographic data that said that Black people made up 12 to 13, 11, somewhere between 11 and 13% of the population. Then as I got into my college age years, the Hispanic population or Latino population either met or surpassed that population. And yet within the Adventist Church, we knew that we saw, and I'm sorry, but this is how we called it. There was the white conference and there was the black conference, but there was never any Hispanic conference or Spanish conference.
Nope,
So,
not at
and
all.
yet those numbers would have suggested that maybe there could have been or should have been if we were basing it on numbers. Now, I know we weren't basing it on numbers at the beginning when those conferences became what they were, but just based on those numbers, then that would suggest that could be something else. So let me ask you about numbers. Can you give us any idea or a ballpark of what is the Hispanic makeup of the Seventh-day Adventist Church at this point? From Abel and his crew back in Arizona up until now. Any ballpark in North America or at least in your region where you are?
So what I understand right now is that in North America right now, we're almost 300,000 Hispanic Adventists in North America. And to add something interesting to that quote is that most of them go to English speaking churches.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In the early 19s, we were maybe about, I was reading close to 60,000, but now today, 2023, my understanding is between 250 and 300,000.
That's a huge leap. Yeah.
So, can I do a follow-up question? Are those numbers from individuals, or do you all track, or is there tracking to see if those numbers are individuals who have immigrated to the United States, or maybe first generation Latino or second generation Latino, yeah, I guess that's it.
That's a great question. I couldn't tell you exactly the makeup, but I would guess that obviously a whole lot has to do with many have immigrated, but then also many have been born here. Let me give you this number though, with the population of now that we're in the whole month of Hispanic heritage. It is what 60, almost 63 million. I understand Hispanics in the U.S. 63 million.
Wow.
Interesting enough, and this is from this past census. Out of those 63, and out of those 60, 40,000 of them are native Hispanics. Just you. I mean, they were born here, and only 20,000. Only 20 million. Sorry. Are immigrants. They moved from their countries to this place. That really caught me for surprise, because the assumption is that the majority are immigrants who have come, right? But the truth of the matter is that there's a whole lot more who were born here, right? They're Hispanic Americans, let's say. They're majority than those who have immigrated from their countries. And another number which is pretty interesting here, the oh my goodness, forgot. But the age. No, how you say the oh man, forgot the name. But
you want to say it in Spanish, don't you?
You want to drop some Spanish on us.
The biggest age in between, this number, or the majority, are around their 30s.
Median age, okay, yeah.
The median age, thank you.
Yeah.
The median age of this 60 million are around their 30s.
Wow.
That was impressive to me.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
Now let me just bring full circle to what your question, Steph, because I think it's a great question. I'm sorry that I don't have the answer for that, but and that, I guess this is another question that will come up later, but that just shows the challenge that we have as a church and the Hispanic church, where our greatest challenge is second, third generation. We're good with those who have immigrated, but we have a big gap and a big problem with those who are Hispanic Americans.
Oh boy, that sounds familiar.
I mean, yeah, but
I would say
that sounds
it's
like
because the inclusion of different cultures in there, two different cultures coming in, so different types of worship, different types of things that they like to do now that the other ones that have come in, they're
they're not
very more, you know, they're more
conservative, maybe.
yeah, they're more just as calm as not. But the music, the way of worshiping, and all those things, they have a big impact, and we have a great challenge of how to reach those that have been born here.
Let me
And
ask you a
that's
question. Does it
yeah.
differ from region to region, though? Like, are the challenges different
Oh,
from region to region? No,
oh
same.
yeah, there it is.
But you mean when you say region as
So
Country.
we're talking about, yeah, in the country. So is there are these challenges the same, let's say, in the West Coast of America versus the East Coast of America? Is this worship a challenge in these different regions? Are there other challenges that the Hispanic group are facing as they reach, people for Jesus?
Well, let me answer you that as part of the history that we were talking about, and how did our Hispanics came into the region conferences? As a matter of fact, when you were growing up in the region conferences, there were no Hispanics. There were no Hispanic churches. Everything was, as a matter of fact, just Afro American camp meetings and all that. Now we got all this part of that of the region conferences also included Hispanics. That started it when the Cubans came in and Castro opened the doors and they got to Miami. And in Miami, as a matter of fact, they came to worship in the churches with the different type of worship that they were doing in Cuba. So their worship was more strict than being
Okay.
now as the ones that we were living here in the United States. And when they went to board meetings, they clashed, and they had, I would say, this heat up board meetings. So some of them just took off and say, well, we're going to worship somewhere else. So they went to region conferences and say, hey, we have a church here. We want to worship with you. And of course, all the region conferences opened the door. And that's how this movement of Hispanics started it inside our region conferences. Now, our challenge is to know where do we come from. As I was talking about the Cubans, when they come from our Inter-American division or South American division, their worship is strict. It's
Okay.
kind of, you go by the hymn, you pray with kneeling down, and different things that they do it as we're supposed to, but they're more strict on it. You cannot go up in the platform with type of dress that you can't. You got to go with a tie and all those
Okay.
things. So nowadays it's a challenge because our kids, the ones that were born here, the ones that are in that age, in that medium age, 30 to 40 or 20 to 40, they don't care about you going with a tie up in the platform or anywhere. It's a different culture. So they clash within the church, and that's the challenge we have. How do we reach this kind of groups? And of course, we have different ethics. Like South Americans are different from the ones in Central America, and we speak a little bit different. We got different dialects and so words that we might that I, as a pastor, as a matter of fact, the first day that I went to a church and I said a word, when I got out they told me, why are you saying that word? Of course, in Colombia, it's not a bad word, but for the Mexicans, it's a bad word. So it was a challenge of different activities that we
Right.
have to take care of and we've got to work on. And that's what we're trying to do, trying to reach those medium age kids that are in there. And that's the gap that we have. It's a big challenge.
Wow. 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 Interesting.
Oh, Vanson, anything to add to that,
Oh
Doc?
man, I would just say that it's a challenge as a church. Even the church here in North America, we went uh, through that challenge, and we're still going through that same situation. But I would say that the greatest challenge that we have in the Hispanic community today as a church
Mm-hmm.
is that second and third generation, those who were born here in the United States, are
Yes.
who have this culture here in the United States, which is a different culture from back home. And so, to the point that I was mentioning to Steph, that that number, this number came from the NAD. They was telling us almost 300 Hispanics, but the majority go to English churches, and that majority is that generation, that second and third generation. Language is a big thing. I can still understand Spanish, but I talk English.
Mm-hmm.
And my kids speak English. They understand Spanish, but they want English. And so I struggle with some of my churches that I let them know, hey, your kids, as soon as they leave to college, they're not coming back, and they're going to end up going to a multicultural church, or to an English church, because what we have doesn't fit. So that is our greatest challenge, to adapt to that third and fourth generation. I saw a comment that someone made there about God's intention is for us not to have separate churches or something like that. You know, but the truth of the matter is that we're going to go wherever we feel comfortable with, or where we
Mm-hmm.
identify ourselves with. Even within the Spanish churches, people from Guatemala, they will all go to a church where all the Guatemalans are from. Mexicans will meet where most of the Mexicans are. Puerto Ricans will go where most of the Puerto Ricans will. And Puerto Ricans' worship style are it's a little more contemporary than Mexicans. And so, although they speak
Okay.
the same language, they still
Mm-hmm.
have differences. And so people will go to places, to churches.
Well,
I will say this: the only time we'll all meet together and we'll sing together and we'll be okay together, and maybe that sounded kind of weird, because I think we're okay together. We're okay together. But you know what I'm trying to say? I think that when we all get together, that will be the day.
What a day of
My.
rejoicing that will be.
Yes, 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 yes.
Can I throw in a really quick little funny story right here as we talk
Yeah.
about worship style? The
Mm-hmm.
very first time I had the opportunity to I believe it may not have been the absolute first time, but the first time I heard Pastor Archbold speak was at our church, at my church in Chicago Heights, Illinois. And it was the most interesting thing, because the first thing he said, and this is at an African American English speaking church, the first thing he said is, I don't think my English is well. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to preach this sermon. And so he was so nervous about speaking English, and he did a fantastic sermon, had illustrations and animations on the screen. He probably doesn't even remember that I remember that, but he and his wife came to the church. And so I just want to say that a lot of times when um, you have cultural issues within the Hispanic
Mm-hmm.
community, and then you have an additional cultural issue within the American culture, and certainly then you got these sub issues within the regional conferences with Black folks. So yeah, there's many layers of that. So
Yeah, that's so fascinating. I recall again my little story. I grew up in Orlando, in Florida, and so um, it's hard to go anywhere in Florida and not hear Spanish or really a whole lot of other languages as well.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember and we had to take Spanish in high school. And for the life of me, I could not figure out how I was getting a better grade in Spanish than
in
some
English.
of my Puerto Rican and Cuban friends. And I'm like, what in the world? You guys speak like fluently. I don't speak this stuff. And it was interesting but by the time you get to that second, third generation, although vocabulary might be one thing. There's things that generations start losing along the way that I think some of the older generation they kind of cringe at, and it makes them feel like are we losing our sense of identity and culture and things like that. We see that happen in many immigrant groups. We see it in some of a lot of my family is West Indian. We see it in some of I've pastored Haitian churches, and I see that a lot in some of the Haitian cultures as well. So what we're finding, I think, in this conversation is that there's a whole lot of things that are similar and that are the same in our various groups, and they are different. Mm-hmm. All right, gentlemen, we're going to ask you if you sit put for just a second. We're going to come right back to you. We've got a couple of things we want to say to our viewers this evening, but don't go anywhere. We will be right back. If you are just joining us tonight on the Pastors Roundtable, you've joined us in the midst of, what is it? What's the month, Dr. Henry?
Hey, this is Hispanic Heritage Month. That's right. And interestingly, it starts September 15th and it goes to October 15th. I got to ask them why.
We got to figure out why.
That? I mean,
yeah. All right.
But listen, we've been having a good time. We've been having a good time learning this culture, learning the great things about it, and learning some of the challenges as they reach the next generation as well. So listen, you want to make sure that you share this feed with somebody right now. Listen, this is going to educate you as we go and deal with this topic.
Yes, indeed. Sister Stephanie Scott, Feliz Sábado. Happy Sabbath to you. We are excited and delighted that you are joining us tonight as our guest host in the absence of our Roger Wade, who is traipsing around in South Africa on tonight. But Stephanie, talk to us just a little bit about people who may be joining or watching Pastors Roundtable for the first time, and they're watching and saying, oh, wow, this is interesting. Are there other conversations that Pastors Roundtable has or that I can watch? Where can they go to find out more about some of the past episodes or anything else they want to know about Pastors Roundtable?
They can go to YouTube. They can go to our website. But YouTube is always, I think, the number one place. There are tons of programs that are so good. I would encourage you, if you don't have anything on Sabbath afternoon, 7.
We're on season 7. That means there's been 7 seasons for the Pastors Roundtable already.
And there are a number of shows on everything from LGBTQAI+ to our president speaking. We had the late Pastor Kibble on. I mean, we've had Elder our NAD president, Elder Brian on, and so we've had some really good programs, and we encourage you to go back and watch those and share them. Absolutely.
That's One more thing we want to say to our audience tonight before we bring our guest back on, Dr. Henry. We've been doing this for 7 seasons, for 3 years, 7 seasons. How, if somebody's watching tonight and they want to support the Pastors Roundtable and what we do, because we've come to the very real realization that it's not cheap to pull this off, and we've been fairly consistent over the 3 years, week after week. If somebody says, "Hey, I appreciate this ministry, there's something that I'd like to do to support," how can they support Pastors Roundtable?
Well, listen, they can go right to thepastorsroundtable.com, and you will find that there are several ways to give. In fact, they can give by PayPal, Pastor Paul. They can go right there, give by PayPal, and we'll definitely appreciate it. There's a Cash App that we have as well. You could use the Cash App. We have a QR code right there. In fact, we could even put the QR code on our show so that they can just click it somewhere. There. We do it in church. We could do it here. So they can go there as well. So again, you have to go to the pastorsroundtable.com, and you'll find the different ways to give: Cash App and PayPal.
All right, all right. And if you have not joined the Pastors Roundtable group on Facebook, we invite you to do that as well. I know a lot of you follow the page on Facebook. Go ahead and follow the group. If you have not subscribed to the Pastors Roundtable YouTube channel, I want you to go ahead. You might be watching on that channel, but if you've not subscribed, we want you to go ahead and click that subscribe button or hit that little thumbs up, and that will help us out as well. All right, let's get back. And I see some questions popping up in the chat here. There's some good questions that I'd like to get to. Let's go ahead and bring our guest back in at this time. Gentlemen, welcome back. And again, thank you so much for hanging out with us on a Friday night here at the Pastors Roundtable. All right.
I like these. I mean, I know we have some questions we want to ask, but there's a question there by Carlos Medley.
Yeah.
Maybe we could if you could just talk about this a little bit. What has fueled the growth of Latino? Let me tell you something. I'm in the Florida Conference, and I'm telling you, the great work is being done here by our Latino brothers and sisters in Christ. And I know same thing like Southwest and some of the other conferences there. What's fueled this growth? What this passion for evangelism? Hernandez first.
Well, starting with your president, who is a Hispanic, is a Cuban American.
Let's start there.
Hey, for many years, well, I grew up in the Florida Conference. I'm from GMA, Greater Miami Academy. Graduated, and you graduated from University of Miami. So I'm a Miami boy. I'm a Miami Dolphin boy. 2-0, huh?
Fort Lauderdale here. Yeah.
Hey, 2-0. Yep. So, all my friends are from Florida, and what is it? What's fueled the Latinos to grow? And it's the passion. So I think that's in the blood. Evangelism, it's part of the Inter-American and South American division. I mean, you go to our churches and they're always doing something the whole year long. And when they come here, even though some pastors have come without any, I would say, and I could say this in a moderate way, they have come without a visa or they just stayed here. And some of them just started working in the church without pay, without doing anything. And this has fueled, and I would say it would give a opportunity for others to do it too. So when you see someone doing it, it gets like catching it up to everyone. So if you have someone that comes from South America and they just came into the country and they always been doing evangelism in their country, believe me, they're going to continue on doing it here. And
praise God.
That will give the others a way of how to go out and do it. Because for us that been living here for many years, I mean, sometimes it's like a sleeping mode, and you need some kind of someone that can help you up and give you that little spark so that you can go ahead and do it. So when these people come into our conferences and they come from other countries, they come fired up. And you really don't want to stay there and look at them. You want to go out and help them out. So this is part of how our Latinos or our Spanish churches have growth in all the conferences all over the North American division.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that?
Yeah, I got one too. Go ahead, Steph.
Okay, I guess my follow-up question is, culturally speaking, so I lived in Chicago. We had a large population of Mexican and Puerto Rican individuals in that particular community. When I talked to a lot of those individuals, they came from countries that had, at least from their perspective, had a deeper religious conviction, whether it was the Catholic Church or whatever, so that the individuals are already deeply spiritual or deeply religious. And so then coming into the United States, they were already, used to being spiritually active. Do you think that has something to do with that? There may be a deeper spiritual or religious culture in the Hispanic culture?
Well, I'm going to give you my story, and it's my parents, my mom and dad met, back in the '60s, and daddy went over and said, "Well, I want to marry you." My mom says, "You're not marrying me until you get baptized." So what
All
did
right
daddy
now.
have to do?
You gotta get baptized.
Go get the studies, get baptized. 8 months later, he was the first elder of the church. That's
Wow.
how you teach them. I mean, in order for you to become a member of the Seventh Day Adventist, you had to go through a crash course. There was no easy of saying, I want to be an Adventist, and now let me get you baptized and goodbye. No, you had to go through a crash course, and you had to learn all the faiths and all the little details of the church. Otherwise, you would not get baptized, and you had to go to the board meeting, and they would accept you, and then you get baptized. So my dad was, I guess, was taught very well that 8 months later he became the first elder of the church until a couple of years that he resigned because of my mother illness. But and he was one of the pastor down in Forest City. He was the first elder of all those retired pastors for 15 years down in Forest
Yeah.
City Church, Spanish church. So
Yeah. Yeah.
the culture that we have, I mean, the those ties, or the way that we train our members to become Seventh Day Adventists in our South American and North American division, it does influence a lot when you come here to the United States, because you don't leave that fire out. It's always burning. It's always doing something. It's always bringing someone to Jesus' feet. And this will never disappear. But and that's where the gap right now is, where we're trying to teach our children's, the ages from 20 to 40 right now, to have that fire, to be as we were back then in our communities, down in our churches, in our countries. So it does fires up. It does gives you a little bit of a more of a I would say more of being trying to for you to become someone, or become a minister, become an evangelism without that pastor or elder's title. That's how they become, and that's how it is in our countries.
All right. That's interesting. So here's my follow up to that. Vanston, I'll give this one to you first anyway. So, with that said, and with what you have said before, so this works, it seems, with the immigrant Latino population. We're on fire. You come here, you're Adventist already. You come into a church and you're on fire doing it here like you did it back home. Who does that work for here? Who are they reaching? Are they reaching other immigrants, or does that fire translate into reaching those second, third, fourth generation immigrants who we said at the beginning were difficult to reach? Does that fire work for them, or is it in just that the other immigrant groups that are our population that's here, that first generation?
Man, so can I just pull back a little bit
Sure.
and just say that I have a different approach. I've had the privilege of working in both divisions, and it is different. Inter-American division, where most of our Latino or our Spanish-speaking churches are, and not only Spanish. We have Jamaica and Trinidad, and some are English, which also they are hyped up with evangelism also. Um, you know, when I say we, I talk about, because that's where I come from. We got this from where the church started, which was here. with missionaries who went out from here to our countries
Wow.
to show us, to teach us, to indoctrinate us. But there was a passion for mission, right? And I'll just say this, man. I'll just say this. Unfortunately, it's uh it's when you come to a point, and I think this what has happened to us in North America. God has blessed us so much as a country. We're good. The things it's easy to get things here. It's you can work hard too, but the privileges are a whole lot. And let me say this, Doc. Many of our Hispanics, although the Hispanic work it is growing faster in the U.S. in a way, we have an issue, which is not everyone is working. Because once I say this, once they cross the border, it seems like we change mentality too. It's like we come to a mentality of a state of, okay, I'm working hard, but I've been blessed. I'm getting these blessings. I'm able to send money back home. I'm working all day, and suddenly there's no time for God either. So it is an issue. We have this issue also within the Hispanic community. There's this understanding that somehow we're the only ones growing, and I would like to say no. Although yes, there is growth, but we have the same issues. I have issues with my churches and my pastors. Um, Although you do have a percentage that's growing, the majority are not. The majority are just pleased and okay. And this doesn't happen in our countries. When our countries, and let me say two things real quick. Most of our churches in our countries are from, middle class to lower class, and people are more open to hearing the word when you are in those type of situations. But the big cities, Bogota and big cities, it's getting to a point where people are so busy working, they're doing pretty well too, and so the commodity it changes people and their acceptance of the gospel. So I would say that to your question, man, the challenge that we have here is that they're able to reach their peers, which is immigrants.
Okay.
But it's very hard to reach that Hispanic who has been established. That third generation who went to school, got his doctorate, he's a doctor, he's a lawyer, he's this, he's that. That population we're not reaching. And I'm thinking generally, because you do have people who are reaching out to,
right,
but it's a minority yet.
Yeah,
it's a minority, and so we still reach out to those who are in that same state where we are, and we have the challenge. We have the challenge of reaching to that second and third generation, because they're open to listening to someone who is in that same state too. So that's that. I see people talking about baptisms and big and all that kind of stuff. It's true, but let me tell you, it's not. There's some things I want to say them here openly. I remember when I have friends who the pressure was real. The pressure is real for pastors in these countries. Whether you don't baptize, you get fired.
Wow.
When I was able to serve real quick as a president of a conference there in Turmerican Division, and it's a top down structure from the president of the NAD. From the IAD says this Sabbath is this Sabbath. Everybody does. It's and so I remember when I came back to the U.S., I was helping this pastor. And when I came back, he sent me a message, said, man, the new president's here. I've been able to reach my goals for last year. I wasn't able to reach my goals for last year, and I'm behind with my goals for this year. And I got the letter saying, listen, at the end of the year, if you have not reached the goals from last year and this year, at the end of the year, you're going to be gone. And he's like, man, what should I do?
My.
And I said, listen, man, obviously pray and get some help. And, he was able to get someone to come to Bible working and do stuff. And he was able to get the goals and he wasn't fired. But the stress, that's the other side that sometimes people don't see.
Yeah.
Now, there is a other side that is true, which is the passion for ministry is real. You do have a lot of people who have a passion for, and they're giving Bible studies, and we do have those type of disciples here in our country, here in the States also. That's where you do see some growth, because you do have people who are passionate about small groups. Small groups in the Spanish church is big. And we meet every Thursday and we give Bible studies. You do see the level of those type of commitment and passion in it. But to me, man, really, to me, it's all about, once you get to a point where you feel comfortable and you think you're okay, the gospel is not as, you are more open to the gospel when you're going through your trial and you're willing to listen. And that's why I think as a church, it's very hard for us to reach a certain community, because we're reaching another community that is needing of Christ, yes, but the other one that's a hard ministry right there.
Wow. Can we have a medic in the house? It looks like Rodney Smith has a whole lot of hurt going on in there. I keep seeing ouch, ouch, ouch.
Rodney is firing away, man.
Hey, listen, man. This is just so eye-opening to me as I'm listening to you guys share. I said this earlier, but even more so, I'm beginning to see that there's just so much more similarities among people groups than I think we take on at face value. I think we hear a different language or a different dialect or a different accent, whether it be Haitian or Caribbean or Hispanic or whatever else. But as I'm listening to you guys, we've had folk here from regional conferences saying almost exactly the same thing. I know you guys are from regional conference too, but I mean, talking about the African American work or the Black work, specifically in the American context there, and it sounds the same. I mean, it sounds similar when we talk to our Caribbean crew. Once their kids get second, third generation, start getting more affluent, et cetera, even in the African American community. We know, those of us that grew up in the African American community, we used to go and pitch a tent in the projects, in the low income, and we could baptize a whole lot of folk there. But once we started sending folk and getting their college degrees and their post graduate degrees, then it became a whole lot harder. And that's not, I think we've often used so many things and concepts and ideas to separate us. And yet there's a lot of this stuff that is, again, we are all experiencing some very similar phenomena when it comes to mission and evangelism here in North America.
And can I just say this real quick? Because to me, I'm very passionate about this. And I think we need to have this conversation in different stages and bigger stages. And I think that people are willing to listen. Don't matter what social status they are, the rich, the middle class, the poor, they want to listen. I just think that as a church, doesn't matter where we are, South America or here, we just need more of us committed to really to doing the work. I think we just got, and I'll include myself in it too, we got lazy in some things. And, because it takes sacrifice, it takes time for us to go to our neighbors, to invite them to our homes, to just, all of that is like, listen, man, I got enough on my plate. I'm not trying to get, but we really need to get to this conversation as a church that, hey, we need to, this passion that we somehow lost, or that first fire, whatever it is, get back into it. Because as soon as we are willing to, I think God has a whole lot of people just waiting for us to, share with them, give them our testimony. So I really don't think it's a South American thing, an American thing, and whatever. I think it's just the fact that we really need to just put ourselves in God's hands and just let God use
My
us.
Lord. Good,
Wow.
good stuff. Good stuff.
Wow.
That was the organ music cue. That was the
Yeah, I,
There you go.
That's it.
Oh my.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot.
All right, we've got a couple more questions here before we wrap up tonight. Who wants to
Yeah,
take that one,
I'll
Steph?
take the next one. I'll take
Okay.
the next one. I
Hmm.
think was just switching gears a little bit. Yesterday, I happened to, or earlier this week, I should say, I was watching the news, and of course, on the evening news recently, we've seen a lot of talk about the border issues and illegal individuals coming across the river, coming into Texas, and I believe you both are in Texas, and I'm just wondering what is first of all how you all are feeling about that, and then also kind of what has been maybe some of the things that you all as a conference have done, if anything, or what can be done to provide assistance. I'm sort of picking on Texas because it's the border town, but I do know that there are also other cities where individuals are being bused to and flown to, and they're experiencing some things as well with the immigrant population coming into the United States. So, kind of give us some information on what's happening down there in Texas, please.
Hmm.
You can start Pastor Archbold and then Pastor Hernandez if you want to add something.
Um, Recently as a conference we went to, and Pastor Hernandez was part of that crew. We went to El Paso. This was just a couple years ago because in the mix of this big, the caravans coming in, but it was a reality. We were able to go to Juarez at one of the um, asylum places
Hmm.
and see firsthand, um, the reality that most of these uh, um, human beings are going through, and why they take this journey, why they risk it all. And a lot of people sometimes, you have to in some type of way be in their shoes to understand why would you be willing to take such a risk, to walk thousands of miles, and just to see if you can get some hope, you know in a country that God has blessed immensely. So we're able to help. We took a lot um, of goods for them, medicine, generic medicines that Pedialyte for the kids. We went with a group of nurses that were able to assist, clothes and things that they needed, and just to support them and pray for them. We found a couple of Adventist families who were in that journey,
Wow.
and just to listen to the testimonies and why and all of this, it's heartbreaking. Um, and so we teamed up with a couple institutions who are there helping out on this side of the border and on the other side of the border. Back in those days, a an Adventist leader, not in El Paso but down in Eagle Pass, I believe, the cartel, that which is another thing going on because the cartel gets involved and they kidnap people, and so not only do they have to pay their what they call their coyotes to take them across, but now the cartel will snatch them, and then they'll have to contact the family and have them pay them if they want to. So many times the cartel will wait till they go, and once they get to the border and they're returned, then they will snatch them, and they say, okay, for you to go back home, you're gonna have to pay me. And we had a leader, Adventist leader, who lost his life there in Eagle Pass because it's a serious thing. It's a very serious thing. So there are some houses of refuge that the church has. We support some of them. Local churches do. And I'm going to give this to Pastor Hernandez because he does a whole lot of work. He has helped a whole lot of immigrants who have come in our territory. Um, Legally to help them with their paperwork and all. He has a whole lot of experience He called me once at 2 in the morning. I was in Houston. He said, "Man, I need you to go pick up this
Wow.
lady. She was coming from Louisiana. She was a whole month in prison, or that she was detained, and they let
Thank
her
you.
go at 2 in the morning. And he called me at 2 in the morning. Please, I'm not there. Could you go pick her up? I went pick her up, put her up at a hotel. Next day, we got her some clothes. Then her husband was in another place. We're able to assist them both. Right now, they're in one of our churches, and they're helping. They got a job now. They're good Christian leaders, good people.
Yes.
Just finding an opportunity.
Wow.
And I can add to that, yeah, Pastor Archibald. Yeah, we've been helping so many people in these situations. As a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago, I was coming into the airport and I got a Uber, and the lady that was transporting me was a Cuban girl, and she was telling me her story when she heard that I was Colombian, and she told me I went to Colombia. So I went to Venezuela, I went to Colombia, and then we passed through Venezuela and went all the way crossing Central America until we got to Mexico. So that was a big journey. She
Wow.
saw some people dead down in crossing between Colombia and Panama because there's not a road between Panama and Colombia because there's a big what do you call it,
Forest.
Archibald? Yes, there's a big forest that you cannot build anything there. So they have to take a boat and bring into Panama so that they can keep on crossing. Many Cubans do that. Many South Americans do it too, if they don't have any ways, because most of the Cubans don't let them come into Mexico, and the same as the Venezuelans that they're coming in right now. As a matter of fact, in a lot of amounts of groups. They cannot come into Mexico. They don't let them come in because they know what they're
Hmm.
going to do. So they stop them and they don't let them come in through the airport. So they have to get some other
No way.
avenues. They got to do it through land in order to get to the border between the United States and Mexico. So it is a long journey, and it's not easy to hear every story that comes through, and some of them have been persecuted in their countries. And when they come into our country, into the United States, well, they're trying to make up their lives. And
Right.
every time we find couples or families, because it's some families, I mean, there's families coming in with little kids, traveling many hours. I mean,
Mm.
walking miles and miles, and it's not easy to see all of them going through that. As a matter of fact, I was in court yesterday with this young man that Archibald was talking about. We went to immigration court, and the judge gave him a year and a half to solve his situation. So there's opportunities that we can help them, and as a matter of fact, they have become very good leaders in our churches in Houston, and that's what. You know, focus our Adventists are in South America and Central America. When they come here, they don't leave that fire. They come fired up, and
That's right.
they have told me, where can we work? Where can we serve? We are path guide masters. We can help with the pathfinders. So it is a wonderful way of having more leaders that are fired up just to be able to serve here in the United States. And
Yeah.
I ask every one of you and all those that are, pray for them. I mean, it's a tough situation. Some of them uh, just take the initiative to come into the United States. It's not an easy path. It's not easy to come in and face and guards, eyes, face all of them, because they do intimidate you, and that
Mm.
becomes some kind of a I would say, fear for them. And but hey, we got these members coming into our churches, and we just got to pray for them. Pray for them.
That's right.
I got a question, and I'm just our time is just going to get beyond us here in a minute. Are they expecting that? I mean, are they expecting that it's going to be difficult with ICE and you getting across the border? Are they expecting it to be as difficult and as hard as it is? Or is that taking them by? I know that you can't answer for every individual, but just in a general sense, what has been
Well,
your
I would say that some of them know because of, the stories that they send back home. They know that how they were treated.
Hmm.
Some of them were treated fine. Some of them were treated really, really rough. And as they hear those stories, some of them take the advantage of coming in. Doesn't matter what, because of the situation that they're
yeah
going through in their countries. So
Hmm.
either I don't eat in my country, or I take this step and cross the border, and maybe I can make it and help my family down. You know, that's what it gives them that initiative for them to do it.
But then
I
Wow.
don't know.
I also say that, and many times I have discouraged a couple of them because I get calls, hey man, and I talk to them and see exactly their condition, and I many times I say, listen, it's not easy also, because once you get here, we have had people who, and we let them know it's not easy. It's not easy. It's very hard, and some people after they've been here, they go back because and so it's you try to give them as much as you can, um, but I was gonna say, and it just skipped my, oh my goodness,
Hmm.
that's
man.
twice now,
But
Doc.
I was gonna say, yeah,
It's
yeah,
late, but it's just late. That's all. It's late.
it's late, yeah. I just said, listen. Many times I've discouraged a lot. Say, hey, don't make that journey. Some have lost their lives, and sometimes you think if it's worth, and you don't know. Like I said, a lot of people are going through some really hard situations. Others are probably just trying to see, an adventure, and if that's what you're trying to do, don't
Hmm.
make that trip. If you're trying to see what's, that, you know, some others are, okay, because their lives been threatened, and it happens in many of our countries. You're trying to find, but we let them know it's not easy. It is not easy.
Mm,
It is not
wow,
easy. It is not easy.
Hmm.
that's all right.
Wow. Wow.
I
I
want to
mean,
add. I want to add this, and what Pastor Archibald was saying. There's a guy in a radio station that says, "You want to come to you want to get old, you want to get hungry, you want to be tired every day. Come to the United States." Because that's what happens. I mean, usually when you come in, you gotta give some things up in order for you to have that kind of life.
wow,
Oh
wow. Well,
wow.
listen, I've been sitting here, just listening to the story, the impact of what's happening within our nation and the crossing, and also hearing some of the challenges that the Hispanic culture, what you're facing, and to have these you all as leaders here, just kind of addressing those challenges and giving hope, that hey, listen, for the leadership of our church, especially in our Hispanic churches, there's some things that we can do to our brothers and sisters in Christ. And also, as you grow, you encourage other groups to grow as well. You know what I mean? The baptism and the passion that she talked about. Listen, as we begin to wrap up here tonight, I just want to ask one question. What suggestion do you want to give to some of the leaders within the Hispanic churches as they face these challenges that we mentioned, the challenges of the border crossing, the challenges of reaching that second and third generation? What advice do you want to give to our leaders within the Hispanic church on how to address those things? And we'll start with Archibald.
I tell as a leader myself, we have to. It challenges our opportunities,
Mm.
and we need to take these opportunities. Here, Houston. If Houston was a country, I'm close to Dallas, but if Houston was a country, it could be. I understand it could be the fourth largest country with immigrants or with refugees.
Mm.
Um, and these challenges are opportunities. You know, I'm gonna I'm gonna say this, man. We need to do a better job reaching other communities. Our Chinese, our Vietnamese, our Filipinos, our our African brothers and sisters come from other nations. We cannot just stick to
our Anglos
and English and Spanish, right?
Yeah.
We cannot just stick black and white or Hispanic, not Hispanic, are big minority. No, man, we have so many other ethnicities in our cities, and this is a challenge, but it's an opportunity to reach. Man, I think that's one of the ways the gospel is going to reach, because once you reach them, they're going to call back home. They're going to say, listen, I found Jesus. I found the truth.
Wow.
So we need to embrace, I think we need to move on from our own little, whatever we got, and say, listen, there's a big world out there. It's in our cities. It's in our neighborhoods. Let's reach out to them. Let's take this challenge and make it an opportunity.
Wonderful. How about you, Pastor Hernandez?
Well, Ellen G. White says that, we are the ones who's got to finish this work. And also, if we don't do it, the rocks are going to do it. Even though the angels wanted to do this job, they wanted to be in our place. They're jealous of what we do because they want to finish the work that it is given into our shoulders. And it's not only our Hispanic or Ukrainians in Florida are growing. They're coming from Ukraine with that war over there. And I've seen some Adventists down in Florida that have come into Ukrainian, and in Mexico City also at Montemorelos. It's not only one culture, it's everyone. And it's, if we have to learn another language in order for us to reach those, hey, we can do it. Even with our phones, you can translate, and automatically you can talk to someone else because the phone can translate everything for you. So there's so many means of doing it. We have to take advantage of it. May God bless us in doing this kind of work, not only in our Hispanics, but to have our leaders just get committed to do what God's word wants us to do.
Amen. Praise God. I do see in the chat, Pastor Wade just saying good morning. PRT from the motherland. So I got to give a shout out to my friend, Pastor Wade.
All right. All right.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Pastor Paul, Stephanie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Listen. Go ahead, Steph.
No, well, I was just going to say, before we go off air, I just wanted to remind everybody of our Pastors Appreciation Month program that will be the first Friday night in October, and we encourage you to send information, 30-second videos, pictures, tributes to any pastor that had a positive influence on you. And we want to make sure that we recognize those individuals. So we invite you to start spreading the word about that program. That will be the first Friday night in October.
All right. And again, tonight, we want to thank our guests so very much for taking the time on a Friday night, late on a Friday night, to come hang out with us here at the Pastors Roundtable. Thank you, gentlemen, again so very much. We pray for you and for your ministries and what God is doing and is going to do through you and your work. We want to thank Miss Stephanie Scott for standing in for our brother Roger Wade. Again, she's done a phenomenal job. And we want to thank you, our audience tonight, for tuning in to the Pastors Roundtable, where we do our very best to help you keep ministry relevant,
resource,
and real. God bless.
God bless everybody. Take care. Have a good night. Guess if you stay put for just a second. Good night, everybody.